All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining the SchemaHero community meeting for spooky season, October. And for all of those who are catching up later on YouTube, thanks for taking time to watch the video. My name's Triva. I am Dev Avocado for Replicated, and I am going to be your host today. So we have a pretty full agenda, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Let me go ahead and pull that up. And all right. Dimitri, you've got a few GitHub issues on the list for automatic migration cleanup to address. I'm going to go ahead and open these up and take a look at them. If you want to take over.
Yeah, so I think we can make a change in SchemaHero that will make like these 3 issues that I linked. It will basically make them obsolete. Like we're not going to have to address them anymore. So there's the issue for rejecting migrations, which currently isn't implemented. It's a missing command from SchemaHero. And then there's a bug that creates duplicate migrations, duplicate DDL and different migrations. And then there's another one for, oh, I guess maybe that's kind of a duplicate of what I was saying before. Anyway, I think if we make SchemaHero ensure that there is only ever either 0 or 1 migration per table, then these issues go away. And if you ever need to reject a migration, you should do it by removing it from your schema spec. That's how you reject a migration. Like it shouldn't be like a manual process. And then of course, if there's only 1 migration per table, you never have duplicate DDL.
Interesting. So it's interesting to combine those 2.
Yeah, and then we don't need the reject command. Like we just remove the mention of it.
I think there still may be like if we have a manual approval command, I mean, yeah, there may be multiple ways to reject, but like the idea of a reject is, it's not wrong.
It's not wrong, but if you have a rejected migration and that's part of your schema definition still, that just creates confusion. Like,
yeah, right. Because if you, so you're saying like, so basically on the 2, right? So let's say I make a change to a schema, a desired table where I do something simple. I add a column that gets deployed. There's a pending migration, which says it's going to alter table, add the column. And then you come in and you add another column to that. The challenge that we have with SchemaHero right now is those aren't 2 different migrations, me adding a column and you adding a column. In that sequence, it'll be one of me adding a column and then one of you adding 2 columns because the table has both of those and it was different.
Yeah. So then, yeah, so in that case, you would want to reject the first migration, but I'm saying we shouldn't have that situation.
If in the way it behaves today, if I make a change to the schema and you make a change to the schema, does it recalculate and just overwrite the migration, or you end up with 2 migrations?
You get 2 migrations.
But Dimitri, your proposal is in the scenario that I just laid out, when you made that second migration, it would automatically just close mine. And now there's only 1 migration per table at a time.
I think it should just delete it and not leave it hanging there. Just delete it.
Because if you were to approve that one, then the second one's going to be broken because it can't do the thing that it says it's going to do.
Yes, and on the flip side, if I were to come in and say, hey, we don't need this column at mark edit, and I remove it, now the DDL is empty because the schema matches the column. In this case, we should just delete that migration too.
After I approve a migration, do you delete it in your proposal?
No, we leave them. I'm not sure, like for historical reasons, but if you have Git control over your schema, you have history. There's another ticket about how it takes a long time to list migrations. With SchemaHero get migrations takes a really long time. So, like if we could fix that, that wouldn't be an issue maybe. And if there was an easier way to filter the migrations, that would help too.
Right. A migration is just a custom resource in Kubernetes. So the fact that that takes a long time to list really makes me wonder what's happening there.
Well, I know what's happening. We get like we get the list of resources, and then we get like I think database information for them or something like that. There's like an extra loop that runs over them. Yeah.
It's yeah. And they're probably all for the same database, and so it's probably just like super inefficient, basically.
Yeah, always terrible. Yeah.
Still kind of think you should clean up the migrations after a while. So, I mean, the reject seems like it could go away, but like the auto cleanup for migrations would be nice.
As a counter to that,
we have the audit log.
Yeah, audit log. But we still
well, I mean, it's nice
like,
to have like a history of when they were, that they were approved. It'd be nice to know who approved it. It would be, but maybe like you could use events or something, even though those don't live for a very long time.
But you don't need.
We do have like all of the Goose migrations that ever ran. We still have them. Those,
Could we do something like what Docker does? So like if you do Docker PS, you see just the running containers. Could we do something where like, hey, this migration still exists, and if you pass us a -- all flag or something, we'll show you them.
Yeah, that would be super useful.
That's a good idea. So they stay as custom resources in the Kubernetes cluster, but like I think the way they work today is there's an annotation or a label that we put like an approved at or a rejected at timestamp on it. So like it would just be ones that don't
approved, executed, and then like something else. I think.
Yeah.
Like approved, planned, approved, executed. So if we have ones that have executed, I mean, we don't necessarily need to show them if they executed a year ago. This doesn't need to clutter up my display. Sorry.
What would be like super useful? Like the reason I would think you wouldn't want to get, well, there's probably another state like that they need is like failed, which I don't think we have today because I think it like fails in the background. But it would be useful for like more information about the execution, and it'd be really weird if you approved them and they went away immediately and you're like, well, did it work? What happened?
So I think we have three different proposals here, which like on the surface they all sound good, but I think we should like document them and put them in the agenda to start with. We have one is to like not have a rejected, like there's no reject. Like if you don't like a migration, just change the spec and then recommit it. That only works if you also kind of like proposal 2 from Dimitri, which is there's only one possible open migration per table at a time. And then Andrew, sorry, can you had the third thought there? Which was that?
My third thought was just like filter the display output by default so that you're not seeing all of the old executed ones. But that's
There's
sort of
a ticket for that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you have to think hard about the second one because you might still need like order when we add features. Like sometimes you have to execute things in sequence. Say there's like a data migration or something, but we haven't solved data migrations, but typically when you have a traditional schema tool, there's I doubt like it does maintain sequence, I'm assuming.
Yeah, right now you'd have to like you have to sequence it manually, like you do partial schema migration and migrate data and then finish your schema migration. You'd have to have like multiple commits to do that.
Yeah.
Ethan, since we don't handle data migrations though today, I like obviously that's what you said. I agree that I don't know how we're going to avoid running into that wall and that cliff, but like since we don't support it today, should we Should we design like the thing doesn't exist, or should we think about that too?
Yeah, I can't think of a reason like other than that why you need to sequence things. Like if there's like two different, like if you're adding a table, sorry, if you're adding, yeah, like a table and then a foreign key with another migration, you have to be careful about probably how you apply the tables, approve the ordering of the migrations, but that can still be done. I don't really know why you'd have to have
it's I think a common
statements
scenario
for one single table.
I think common scenario is if you add a column and you want it to be unique, to have a unique index on it, and table already has data in it, then that column is not yet populated.
Yeah, actually, Ethan, I think that I don't know, nobody's mentioned this yet. Like I haven't seen anybody run into this, but like even today, I think that's a problem though, right? Like if I were to just use SchemaHero the way it is today, and I created two tables that each had a foreign key referencing each other, like SchemaHero is never going to be able to create that thing because they're dependent on each other. Like, so we already have that problem. Like there's probably a way to generate that DDL in a way that like would work, where you create one without the foreign key, create the other one, then you go back and alter it and add the first one. I don't know if that's like a valid approach to the solution, but it's interesting.
Yeah, sounds like a valid approach. We did recently sequence index and column creation and drop-in because it had to be done in a certain sequence.
Yeah, I don't feel like we're introducing any problems here, so I feel like it'd probably be a positive change.
I listed them under three proposals under Dimitri's topic here, just so we had a record of them. I think it'd be great to follow up and make more thorough GitHub issues where we can have a conversation about them. And then I don't know if we need to think about prioritizing them right now. I know there's a pending PR on the reject stuff, on making the reject command work, but now there's another proposal just to remove that. So should we merge that one in and have a reject and then pull it out, or should we how do you want to approach?
I think that PR is what started this conversation.
Sure.
Yeah. We should probably.
I don't think we merge it in until we know what we're going to do.
So that seems fine. I'll start off with Dimitri. The top two of these came out of, you brought them to the table and discussed them, and Andrew, the third one, would each of you be willing to create more like fleshed out issues in the repo to discuss these, and then we can just reference the open PR in it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
My comment on the PR was that it doesn't really reject a migration if it's not removed from schema. Next time somebody else makes a change, it will be recreated.
Yeah, it's like very, very superficially reject. It is interesting, like to think on the non-technical, like the reason that approve and reject is good is for like, governance and compliance and workflow and auditing and things like this. And so if there is potentially, and I'm not arguing the other side, just like, there's potentially some value in having like an explicit, I don't want to run this, and here's the date and here's who did the rejected it. It's a little much bigger than what we do right now.
It is, and you get the same information from GitHub.
Yeah. Great.
All right, did anybody else have anything else to add before we move on to our next topic? I appreciate the Longhorn shirt, Ethan. Okay, so the next one is from Mark, and that is in regards to the annual Sandbox review for SchemaHero. I did not say review, I said review. So Mark, would you like to take over?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. We like as a CNCF Sandbox project, one of our requirements is to submit an annual review as a PR into the CNCF, the Technical Oversight Committee repo, where we talk about like what we've done in the past year, adoption, what we're planning on doing, just the state of the project, the state of the ecosystem, and the community that are behind it. We've been a Sandbox project for like maybe like a year and a week. They're not really, I don't think they're going to hold us to that 1 year timeline, but it's definitely something that I think we need to put on the agenda and figure out how to move forward with.
Yeah, absolutely. So aside from the things that we've already discussed, what do you need on my end to get us into incubating?
Well, I think that, I mean, we should have that conversation. That's an interesting conversation. My impression was we probably want to, based on the adoption and community and the state of the project right now, like provide an update and go 1 more year as a Sandbox project. I don't think that we're ready for incubation yet because we need more end customers. We know there are people using the project. They talk in Slack, hey, we use SchemaHero, but like the adopters file is empty. We're the only company that's on the record saying we use this project, other than click and link and figure out who they are from Slack and things. So I think a big focus that we need to do is to get a more publicly listed like adopters and contributors. Right now, I think the other challenge that we have, and like I honestly, we need to probably call this out in our review, is that we've had a lot of good outside contributions, but today the only maintainers in the project are replicated employees. And it would be amazing if we can move forward with getting external maintainers to the project.
To be fair to the sort of users file, that was only added like 2 weeks ago. So
is it still just us, Andrew?
I think so. I'll go look,
Yeah.
But I haven't seen any PRs to update it. So
can we call something out in the channel in Slack? Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. Gonna add that for an action item.
yeah, adopters file is still just us.
The Docker image has been pulled over 1 million times though, so it's just us listed, but unless we're using it in some weird workflow that I'm not aware of, like, there's other people using it.
That is a lot of times. Also, thank goodness that Docker Hub provides free image pulls for public repos.
Yes. Yes. Chiva, I don't know I think my ask on this annual Sandbox review is to see if there's anybody who wants to take the lead and own like creating the draft of that and helping get the process going so that we have something to submit in the next, I don't know, like few weeks, but identify the timeline, identify some examples out there, make sure we meet the requirements and work with whoever we need to work with to create the draft of that PR.
I volunteer. Okay, let's
right.
connect in Slack and yeah, just give me an outline, point me in the direction I need to go and I'll do the thing.
Awesome.
Any other points, comments, suggestions, questions, anything? All right, so I'm super excited about that one, but we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic, which I actually deleted, but I guess I'll put it back just to like fill up some time. I just wanted to thank everyone who came to the SchemaHero booth, either virtually or in person at KubeCon. It was a success, and already mentally making plans on how we're going to make it even better next year when we're hopefully an incubating project. But thank you all so much for joining, and hopefully we'll have like a recap of the SchemaHero booth and what we did at KubeCon up on the Replicated YouTube channel, same channel where you're going to find this video. So thank you all for that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move into open floor, where you can talk about anything SchemaHero or Replicated open source related. Have at it.
Shiva, on the KubeCon one, I have a quick follow-up question. Like, I know we did like about a 45-minute live stream office hours, and there was like some folks watched that. Do we have access to the video? I know it was recorded, and we can put that up onto the SchemaHero channel also.
So I believe that we do have access to it, and we're going to get all of those videos, so all of the live streams, and we'll be able to upload them to our YouTube channel. If not, then would you be open to re-recording possibly? Or like a slightly adjusted version, I guess.
Of course. And if we can find another 35 to 45 people to be engaged in and ask questions the way that it was like the response was made it really, really good. It was very spontaneous and let's say authentic. It was very community driven. And I think that if we have an opportunity to do that again and we can set that up, it'd be great.
Okay, awesome. I know that we do have an invitation open for, I think, cncf.tv, which could be another opportunity to present. Sure. But I have to follow up on that one. But yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure, thanks. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Did anyone else have anything to discuss during open floor while I try to read things?
I have an understanding question, but I feel like maybe that's a Slack thing, or I don't know if we're doing what is this during this meeting?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what open floor is for. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of related to what we were talking about earlier with migrations. And this is a dumb question, but I swear there's some meaning in it. Is what is a migration? And I guess kind of thinking about it in my head, I was trying to make a mental model. And is it A to B, or is it, because we're doing declarative, is it just to be? So I think what Dimitri is proposing is it's always to be. So if the schema changes, if the YAML changes, it's always just trying to get there. It's this is what the database is, doesn't matter what it is. We're going to regenerate a migration to get to B. Or is it this is the database A at a certain point in time, that's really what it is. And we're going to the YAML in B. And then if the database changes, there's the migration just goes away. So, or does it get recalculated? So I'm trying to figure out what my mental model of migration should be.
I think migrations are named based on content shop, if I'm remembering correctly. So when we get an updated migration for an updated database state or an updated delta of some sort, then that will have a different content shop. And so it will have a different name, if that helps at all.
And Dan, what you described was some of the original intent in that we didn't go there, and maybe we shouldn't, but the idea really being that there's 3 custom resources that are managed by SchemaHero. There's a database, a table, and a migration. So a database is just a pointer to the database instance, right? It has the credentials or the vault credentials to figure out how to go find it's connected to the database. A table is that one declarative state of the way you want the table to look like. And when you make a change to that YAML, the Kubernetes operator uses its reconcile loop to detect that. It'll take that point in time, go query the current database schema using the information schema table or whatever. It varies depending on the engine that's running it. And then it will generate its own migration custom resources and write them into the cluster. Which then you approve or reject, which just changes annotations and labels on them. The intent with that was, I think, 2 things that we don't do today. One is that the reconcile loop should be able to watch the database itself and do what you just were alluding to, where we can say, it could even invalidate its own or do whatever it needs to do, like a migration that was previously created because the database was changed out of band of this tool. It doesn't do that today. Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. Interesting conversation. And the other thing is we don't document or really support or talk about that kind of secret. It's not a secret. It's just not documented, like migration custom resource. I think that you could just write one and use GitOps or whatever you want to, deploy it to the cluster and execute any DDL statements you want to against the database. So if you had a type of migration that SchemaHero couldn't calculate, you could just deploy it anyway, and SchemaHero could still manage the execution and the application of that to the database.
Okay.
That definitely works. I've manually edited quite a few migrations because they had bugs in them.
Generating DDL alter table statements can be problematic at times.
I feel like I'm learning how to use things, and as I was playing with it, this weird behavior where I was like generating a migration, and then like I would forget what I was doing to it. Like I wouldn't touch it or something like that, and I would like delete the table and like bring the table back up, and like it wouldn't recreate the migration, or like it wouldn't detect that it was like that I don't know. I had to document it, but it was just like really weird. So Dimitri said like, you know, if I reject the migration, it would recreate it. And like, there's part of me that thinks like maybe not, but I'm probably just using it wrong. Because it's like something about the hash or something like that. It was the same. And I had to go like make a different table, like or a different table schema for it to recognize that it was a new migration.
I think what you described, I totally agree with. Like, not just, I don't think that that's like you should learn how the project works. I think that you had an expectation that it would work a certain way, and I agree with that expectation. It's not how the project works today, but I think we should decide if it's actually worth doing, like making it work the way you expected it to work. Because on the surface, that seems like A, that's the way people do expect it to work, and B, like it seems to, like, what's the downside?
Yeah, I have to document what the actual problem is, because I feel like it was just some hand waving. It just was weird.
There's definitely a downside to like not reconciling the migration, because it could get out of date, correct? Like hopefully nothing else is controlling the schema, the actual schema of the database, but if you did have to make some manual change, then your migration could be incorrect.
Yeah, like I think that's what Dimitri, like we use SchemaHero, right? But like we still have a different schema migration tool for older stuff before we built SchemaHero. And also there are, I mean, it'd be interesting to chat, but like we have some use cases where we can't use SchemaHero for it. And so we deploy them using other tools. And like there are definitely, you know, if we want to think about more widespread adoption of SchemaHero, there are folks who currently have, you know, like a different tool that they're using, and it might be, you know, Liquibase or Goose or Flyway or something like this that they have, and we're not going to like be able to. Today, I know we support every use case that they support, and so being able to like use them in conjunction definitely makes sense. So I think, you know, like personally, I don't think that we should assume that SchemaHero is the only thing that's managing the schema of the database, because that's going to be a really, really hard sell for stuff. Like we have to support every possible edge case then.
I have a lot of thoughts about that, or just one really kind of like, that's an impossible task. It's simply because like SchemaHero, so right now it takes schema and applies it to the database, but if we take database and generate schema from it, it's a tool that conflicts with itself. It can't do both of those things.
Doesn't it already do that in order to calculate the migrations? Or am I not understanding what you're saying?
Yeah, well, if database changes out of band, right, then we should take that database and apply it to the schema. Like schema and database should match.
But you're saying,
but that becomes indistinguishable from the case where I change the schema and now database needs to change.
Are you suggesting that we check YAML into GitHub, and then SchemaHero makes that live in the cluster? And so let's say that you manually change the table. Do you want to see SchemaHero make a commit back to GitHub, and so that the YAML that we have as the source of truth of here's the way we want the schema to be gets reflected based on the change you made?
What I'm saying is that if SchemaHero were to manage that as well, that's how it would work. But then it would become impossible to do both those things.
But I would argue that the other tool, like Mark, the only use case I could see for having other tools is when there was a gap in what like SchemaHero could do. Like, say it couldn't do a data migration, or it just didn't calculate the. Like I had a problem where it wasn't able to modify the auto increment attribute of like a database table, but what I did with another tool, say, was just to get the table to accurately reflect the schema definition in the declarative state. Like it would be pretty difficult if you had like two conflicting states and you somehow wanted to maintain that. Like, yes, I think that is that what you're saying, Dimitri, and that doesn't seem like something we would want.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know which state you want to converge to, because you have your CRs and then you have your database.
The only thing I was saying is like it would be nice if your alter statement fell out of date if it just were to recalculate it. And I'm not that knowledgeable about SchemaHero. I haven't worked that much with it, so it might be, but I thought that's what you're saying. It doesn't do today, but
yeah, I think that's what I heard Dan thinking it was supposed to do too. And we could do that. Like that definitely comes short of updating the YAML in the Git repo that Dimitri was talking about, but it's weird though, because like a Kubernetes cluster that has a reconcile loop that's triggered on things that happen outside of the cluster, like it becomes like we have to poll probably, but I don't know.
Well, it'd be kind of nice if when you applied, say it was applying, if it could somehow check if at that moment it was out of date, and like how you have like resource versions in like REST APIs or something like that. It'd be nice if there was somehow like you could calculate the resource version of, or like the version of the database at that point. Not, I don't know if databases have that feature or not,
but like if I add a column to a table, right, out of band, now if SchemaHero were to calculate a migration for that change, it would be to drop the column.
But I think that's what it should do. I'm more saying like SchemaHero had a migration where it was to add a column, and then you went outside of SchemaHero and you manually added that column. Then SchemaHero needs to recalculate the migration and either delete that migration, or maybe it's still trying to do something else to the column. I don't know, but like it doesn't need, you don't need that migration.
Okay,
anymore,
so
right?
that way it does make sense. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it would do that today. It would drop that column, which seems like the both scary and also like good part, right? It's like it's drift detection at migration creation time only, though. But like it shouldn't just do that, like because the drift may invalidate the SQL.
It'd be interesting if you could like annotate tables like Kubernetes annotates.
But like that's not what started this conversation. The conversation started like there is another tool, like people use multiple tools to manage their databases. And so in this case, like what I would say dropping that column is incorrect because it was added intentionally by Goose or something.
Yeah, but you need to maintain your declaratives.
Yeah, you do.
You do. So if you don't want that to happen, it'd be really nice if you could then add it later. And then even though SchemaHero, you could add it to your YAML later, your table YAML, and then later SchemaHero at some point would reconcile that, oh, I don't want to drop this column anymore because it has now been added to my declarative state.
I mean, we do the immediate deploy, right? Where so you could bypass the approval and the approval workflow by setting that one attribute in the database YAML. We could potentially do something similar for that, where we have, I don't know what to call the feature, but like the drift detection, or like, come up with a more like opt-in name to say, yeah, I want the SchemaHero YAML to be the only source of truth. And if you ever detect anything that's different than the SchemaHero YAML, basically it's like, do we want to do adds or do we want to also do deletes? Because
will SchemaHero drop a table
no,
if it's not in it? Okay.
There's you have to leave the table definition, the table YAML. You can remove all the columns, and there's like another attribute you put in the YAML, which like is deleted true. And then that's the only way. If the absence of a table manifest won't create the table to be deleted.
So schema, you could have two different things managing two sets of tables, two SchemaHeroes managing two sets of tables.
But,
or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're really in the weeds on this. But Dimitri, like the idea of, I got a question for Dimitri though. And if I have the Postgres database and I've manually added a column over here, and then it's not in the table manifest, you're saying that SchemaHero probably shouldn't drop that table and assume that you don't want it. But how do we know, SchemaHero, how do we know that that's what happened versus you deleted the 4 rows out of the YAML file?
No. So that's fine. It should drop. What I'm saying is, like, right now we're not monitoring database changes, right? We're only monitoring the custom resources. So like me adding a column out of bad, it's just me not doing something correctly. Like that column should definitely be dropped, but it should be dropped when custom resource changes, not. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Databases are hard.
Yeah.
And it turns out people put data in them that they care about. And so like, you can't just arbitrarily delete a bunch of it. I don't think we're going to come up with like a proposal or a solution, but I think it's an interesting conversation that we need to continue to have, because I honestly think that like when we didn't talk about this, but some of the stuff that we continue to use non-SchemaHero stuff for is we sometimes need to write Go code as part of a migration, or we need to like actually we need to write some code, and it does things like, I don't know, what are some examples that we've done in the past? Dimitri, you've written a bunch of this.
Encryption, generate keys, encrypt stuff.
Yeah, right. Things that aren't necessarily built in, and like we absolutely, like in that world today, if somebody needs to generate a bunch of data, like SchemaHero, we're like, yeah, you should go figure out how to generate a bunch of data. Like that's not the schema, but like traditional schema management tools. And I think what people look for is something to manage those things together, not needing a whole bunch of separate tools to do all this stuff. So we should assume that there are other tools in use. And I think that's good.
All right. So that was a really good discussion. I'm sad to see it ending. Did anyone else have anything to bring up for open floor? And Dan, thank you so much for that question. It was not a dumb question. There's no such thing, just dumb people.
There's lots of dumb questions. I can ask lots of questions about like how does this work today, but I don't want to keep everybody, because it's like Dan wants to know the random thing.
Hey, you never know. There might be somebody on the call who doesn't understand that thing also and could use an explanation.
Fair enough.
No, I'm kidding. Not really. Anything else for open floor?
Should I introduce myself? Because all y'all are replicated folks, and I don't think y'all know who I am. So is that appropriate? I'm in your house and I just want to be respectful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm Robert Reeves. I'm the CTO over at Liquibase and had a great chat with Benji over at Shipyard and told me about SchemaHero and sounded really cool. And I'm just here to help out. Certainly like the call out about the Longhorns. I've got mine right up here. If you see them. And I'm also, based in Austin, Texas. So if you need me to yell at Chris Anachek, for the CNCF stuff, maybe he's 3 blocks from me. I can go do that. But look, just here to listen and learn. Hopefully I can be of some service and Liquibase can be of some service to y'all.
Awesome. We appreciate you joining. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you.
I mean,
And I love the
databases are
setup,
hard,
by
we
the way.
agree. So,
Yeah, it's really hard.
well, I think you've put a lot of time into this. So yeah, thanks for joining. And I think, hopefully, we can figure out some of the challenges that you've had too, and avoid, make SchemaHero a good open source.
Absolutely. Look, I might know a thing or two about database updates, but I am a complete idiot when it comes to Kubernetes. I am really dumb when it comes to that. So I'm just learning, but perhaps, I could help out. If not, just let me know. I'm really good staying on mute for meetings too, so I can do that.
Awesome.
All right. Guess we're going to end the awkward pauses. Anything else for open floor? This has actually been really fun. Going once, going twice. All right. So this was an excellent meeting. I thank you all so much for joining, taking time out of your day to come in and have a little SchemaHero discussion. For those who are watching later on YouTube, I appreciate you taking time to get a recap. I do certainly hope that you will join us on the SchemaHero Slack, on the Kubernetes Slack channel, or reach out to us any other way that you can figure out. GitHub is probably also a good option. Thank you all so much, and hopefully I'll see you next month. Bye, everybody.